Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magazine Centre. Today I'm doing the astrology report for the month of May, highlighting some of the key dates and aspects taking place during the month and what this all means for us. Now, before I go through the actual aspects, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that the astrology doesn't control us in any way, shape or form. It's merely a guideline of what kind of energy is around during the course of May, what kinds of themes it generally entails, and what we can kind of expect to happen around us, but it doesn't have any direct control over us. We all have the power to choose how we're going to respond to something, and if we know what kinds of themes are going to be panning out over the course of May, we can choose to respond consciously to it and make the best use of the energy, and preferably allow wisdom to guide us in the choice that we make and how we respond to any given challenge that we may face. Now, during the course of May, we start off with the Sun in Taurus, and this will be for the first 3 weeks. On the 7th, we have Vesta turning retrograde in Capricorn. On the 15th, Uranus moves into Taurus for the first time since 1942, and on the same day we have a new moon in Taurus. On the 21st, we have the Sun entering Gemini. On the 29th, we have the full moon in Sagittarius. Now, with the Sun starting off the month in Taurus and being there for 3 weeks, this is a time where it's working on our personal values, it's working on our resources, but it's also about taking that time to slow down and to concentrate our efforts on maintaining the goals that have started and are showing signs of growth. Because it's all very well and good if we've sown seeds of new beginnings when the Sun was in Aries and we're seeing them come to the surface and showing signs of life, but if we don't take the steps necessary to keep the growth going, so a bit like if you want a plant to keep growing, you got to water it, you got to make sure there's enough nutrients in the soil. The same thing applies to whatever goals we've set for ourselves in terms of what we want to develop over the course of the year. So during this time with the Sun in Taurus is a time that we slow down and we focus our energy on the tasks at hand. We remember to keep taking the small actions on a day-to-day basis necessary to keep goals going, but we don't get we're not necessarily trying to rush around trying to make things happen. We learn to slow down and sync up with the natural cycles, because Taurus is the strongest connection with the earth as being fixed earth sign, and it also deals with the organic cycles of life, the natural birth, growth and death and renewal. It's understanding that everything operates in its own timing. You can't make a plant grow any faster. There's no point trying to harvest a plant before it's even grown the developed flower so that the fruit can be produced. So why waste time and energy stressing over the speed things are taking when everything has its own timing? And if we can learn to sync up with this natural timing and align ourselves with it, then things tend to feel a lot less stressful, because we're working with the natural timing, we're going with the flow of things, and we're letting that intuitive wisdom to guide us and show us when we should be taking action and when it's time to sit back and appreciate our environment. Now, the first event during the month is the Vesta retrograde, starting on the 7th. The retrograde begins in Capricorn, but we'll backtrack into Sagittarius later on. But this is a time, Vesta is one of the goddess asteroids. She orbits between Mars and Jupiter, but she represents that spiritual devotion, that commitment to self and commitment to integrity. And when Vesta is retrograde, this is a time where we need to look at, are we able to stay true to ourselves in the face of external pressure, or do we cave in and end up doing things we don't actually want to do? So it's learning to, if we really don't want to do something, and then we need to be able to say no to that. Likewise, if we want to do something very much, then obviously we want to say yes. So a key part of Vesta retrograde is learning to achieve that state where it's the whole let your yay be yay and your nay be nay. So it's having that inner integrity, so where we're devoted to ourselves, we're we're committed to being true to who we are. We're committed to making sure that our actions are in alignment with who we are, and we're also committed to only doing things which are actually right for us and that we'll be able to do in the correct spirit. Because as I read somewhere in the book that teaches about the importance of boundaries, it says an internal no nullifies an external yes, i.e. if we say yes to something but we don't actually want to do it, we're doing it in the wrong spirit, so there's no point doing it in the first place. So Vesta retrograde is going to be teaching us this. Now on the 15th, as I mentioned earlier, Uranus ends as Taurus for the first time since 1942, and Uranus isn't here. This isn't the complete transfer into Taurus yet. Uranus will go retrograde and backtrack into Aries for one final showdown in Aries, but this is our first taste of Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus is all about awakening, but often this is experienced through chaos and confusion and surprise which seem to come out of left field if we're not open to receiving intuitions that come from the higher mind. So during this time, Uranus in Taurus is, the way I feel it's going to be going through a lot of this is identifying how can we use our resources more wisely, and how can we develop the right relationship with the world around us. Because if you look at the sign of Taurus and its glyph is a whole circle with a half circle pointing to the heavens above it, and this means the whole be in the world but not of it. Interact with the world and do the work that we need to as part of human existence, but have faith, so remain devoted, maintain our spiritual devotions, and trust that any resources that we need that we don't currently have will be provided in one way or another. We may not know exactly how it will come to us, but it will come. But one thing with Uranus going through Taurus, it's also about, again, syncing up with the natural cycles of growth, of working with the organic cycles of things rather than trying to fight against nature. It's also about transforming and awakening our understanding of our relationship with the world around us, and specifically to material things and our resources. So one way this could potentially manifest for some people is the incessant need to keep buying the next latest thing, to keep pursuing a materialistic lifestyle and try and get as much as they can when they can, out of fear that they'll never have enough. In the past, we've also seen an anti-material stance, so like the ascetic, if you like, where the material lifestyle is rejected, it's seen as immoral or it's seen as completely wrong or something, and the person ends up being ascetic. But again, this is a rather extreme way of looking at it. Or we could take the middle path, where we continue to live our lives as we are, we continue to work on our resources and learn how to make maximum use of them, but we understand that the resources are just there for us to use. They're tools, they're not a part of us, they're not belonging to such, they're there to help us create. They're there to give us the raw materials that help us make something new. And this may be a time where it's looking at tapping into that human ingenuity, that ability to see new ways of developing resources, and potentially more humanitarian ways, to how can we develop our resources in a way that's empowering to us and empowering to the people around us, and how can we then share those resources in a way that is humanitarian in its aim rather than all about the personal self, and will therefore help other people in their goals. Now on the same day we have the new moon in Taurus, so this is a time where it gives us an opportunity to set new intentions in Taurus, and this could be along the lines of developing those traits like that patience, that determination to keep going in the face of inertia, that willingness to take slow, steady, methodical actions every single day to keep a goal going, even if it may seem a bit dull. But it's also a time where we may decide that if we're not already feeling synced up with the natural cycles of things, to learn to go with the flow, to recognise what's going on, or what the current kind of growth is, or what the current stage of the cycle is, and what we need to do to align with it, so we're going with the flow rather than trying to fight against it, or alternatively not being in the flow at all, so not really moving forward in any way. On the 21st, the Sun will move into Gemini, and this is a time where Gemini is all about that communication, but before we have communication we need to have perception. So Gemini is about the way we interact with our environment, how we learn from it, and our ability to communicate ideas to one another. Now Gemini ideally is about being logical, it's being objective, but it's also about not having this attitude that we know everything. It's understand that we don't know all the facts. It's about gathering all the raw information together and interpreting it in different ways, but not being set in the way that we interpret things. And the thing with communication is one of its core aims is to help us transmit knowledge from one person to another, but it's also a means for us to recognise where we have a biased perception of something. Because the thing is, none of us see the world entirely objectively. We all have our own perceptual filters, but we all have different filters. So where one person may see a scenario very clearly and objectively, another person may not see it very well, but that person may see a different situation very clearly, whereas the first person doesn't. So by learning to share ideas with the intention of just sharing the truth, not trying to convert people to our way of thinking, it's speaking the truth as best we know it at that point in time, but always being open to the idea or possibility that our understanding of the truth is incomplete, and to listen to one another and see if what another person is saying resonates in some way, or it challenges our way of perception, points out where we've actually been living in, or using box thinking or box perceptions. It's through sharing our ideas in the spirit of truth and curiosity that we learn more, we understand the world better. Just making sure we remember to connect with that inherent curiosity that's part of the human spirit. It's that embracing curiosity and recognising that if we remain open to new ideas, we may come to recognise where we've been disempowering ourselves through a fixed perception that wasn't accurate. So this will be, I'll do another video on the Sun Gemini, obviously, just to give a lot more information about it. But that's a basic overview of it. Lastly, as I mentioned before, we have the full moon in Sagittarius on the 29th. And this is an opportunity for us to see how well we strike a balance between understanding the fine details of a situation and also understanding the big picture. So are we able to see how the microcosm and macrocosm mirror one another? Are we someone who is very good with fine details but struggles with the big picture? Or are we the opposite? Are we good at seeing the big picture but we struggle to make the small details fit with it? And it's also, this Gemini and Sagittarius is like the mind axis. It's bringing left and right brain together and making sure the two work in a complementary way. So we have logic for a reason, but we have intuition for a reason as well. And intuition tends to get largely ignored because it's a rather subjective experience. We all experience it slightly differently. But intuition is understanding things from a broader perspective, as it were. Logic is generally linear, whereas intuition seeks to see the whole picture, and then logic helps us to analyse the different parts of it. So if we want our minds to operate at their optimum function, we need to be able to see both the big picture and the fine details and understand how the two inform one another. Because the big picture is like the overall governing principle behind things that structures everything, whilst the fine details is what holds everything together, like the nuts and bolts, if you like. So it's understanding the facts, but also understanding how beliefs affect our perception. Because perception and beliefs are intimately connected, but you can't disconnect the two. because what we believe impacts what information we allow to be processed as such. So if we believe everything is very dark or dangerous, then our perceptions will ignore anything which contradicts that. And likewise, if we believe everything is safe, or trust in a world that's ultimately supportive, then our perceptions will see incidents which confirm that to us or affirm it. So generally speaking, May is going to be a time of change as such, but if we do the day-to-day work and we carry on taking those actions on a day-to-day basis, but we also make sure that we take time out and spend time in natural settings, like the allotment for example, but just remember to appreciate what we have, to appreciate the life we have, because appreciation and gratitude are key tools for helping us to shift from a scarcity mindset to abundance. Because the thing is generally speaking, we all have the potential to be a lot more resourceful than we realise, but we have to be prepared to change our perceptions of our abilities, to try new things. We also need to make sure we have that detachment. We're not constantly seeking some kind of external security which we can't control. It's about spending time connected to the self, connected to nature, allowing the inconsequential things to drop away so that we can just focus our energies on what truly matters to us. But May has the potential to be very magical if we remember to enjoy the journey. It's not about getting to the destination. The destination merely sets the direction we want to be moving in. The journey is where all the action takes place. It's where we grow, it's where we transform, and it's learning to appreciate each step of that journey, to appreciate them. If you look around, this will take time to slow down periodically during the day and just look at things from a more detached perspective, so separating ourselves and just kind of witnessing what's going on around us. Then generally speaking, a lot of the stress and fears naturally seem to die away as we get a more informed perspective or more realistic perspective on things. We feel more grounded, we feel calmer, we feel more peace, so we don't feel like we have to constantly pursue material stuff in order to feel more secure within ourselves. And likewise, when the sun's passing into Gemini later on, if we maintain an attitude of curiosity and appreciate the fact that we don't know everything, so it's worth listening to one another but not taking each other's words as gospel, it's always worth questioning anything like that to make sure we're not taking down the wrong path. But Gemini is a time for expanding our perceptions and learning to see things as they are in the here and now, rather than living in the past or future based on whatever mental models we've lived in so far. But I hope May is a very magical month for you. I hope it brings you much joy, much growth, and much pleasure in the whole process of growing. And may we all also grow closer as we empower ourselves to help empower one another. And may bring us all many blessings. So take care, and may you receive many blessings during the course of May.